This is from Joining us now is author and historian Dr. Vikram Sampath. Vikramji, namaste and greetings on 75 years of our independence.
Thank you, Anand. Same to you and to all your viewers.
From the ramparts of the Red Fort, Prime Minister Narendra Modi counts Veer Savarkar as one of those who laid down and fought relentlessly for the freedom of our country. But what we see in Karnataka, in Shivamogga, is an intolerance to Savarkar. Posters, banners brought down, and then two separate instances, one inside a mall and the other in a chalk, and people coming out and saying, no, you can't put these posters, and another person is wearing a tilak and he's stabbed. All of this is happening. It's all around Savarkar, saying if you can put Savarkar poster, we'll put Tipu Sultan poster. So let's start with all of this around. Why is this entire resistance and where does this come from to Veer Savarkar?
Yeah, I think it's very, very unfortunate, Anand, and that too at a time when we are celebrating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, that somebody who sacrificed so much for the cause of India's freedom, someone who started India's first organized secret society, the Abhinav Bharat, who organized the first ever bonfire of foreign clothes in 1905 in Pune. Someone who suffered 2 life imprisonments in Kalapani, somebody who actually gave us this whole concept of 1857 being the first war of Indian independence through his magnum opus on it, and not what was hitherto disparagingly called as Sepoy Mutiny. And this book having been inspiration for revolutionaries several decades after it was written, be it Raj Bihari Bose, be it Bhagat Singh, be it Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, somebody like this, someone who all his degrees were snatched away because he was part of the freedom movement. His entire family property was confiscated. His wife, his sister-in-law, others, they had to literally eke out a living by begging. People like this who have suffered so much and sacrificed so much for the cause of this nation, today for petty political gains and electoral gains and politics, we are dragging their names in this very unfortunate manner, which is very, very disgraceful. And what's happening in my home state in Karnataka is I think very saddening, and probably it's just the indication of the times to come, considering the state is going to polls in a couple of months. So it's very unfortunate that political parties start associating themselves with these historical icons. BJP associates itself with Savarkar. So to counter that, you have the Congress, which has traditionally been associated, with Tipu Sultan. It started the Tipu Jayanti and so on in Karnataka, much to the ire of common citizens in the state. So in all of this, I think the casualty is history, and also the legacy of these great heroes that also suffers because we are, judging them by today's standards and for today's political gains.
But a lot of what Savarkar said back in the 1920s and the 1930s stands true, holds true today. We see it manifest. But why is the Congress's hatred, literally hatred, towards Savarkar? Not just resistance, but it's outright manifest there, where they say Savarkar's modern day Savarkars and Jinnahs, and Savarkar is equated to Jinnah. And then they say, if you can put Savarkar, we'll put Tipu Sultan. Why? Where does this stem from? In your commentary and very exhaustive one, can you put a finger on why this is happening or who started this?
I think it began, Anand, in 1937, when Savarkar got out of conditional imprisonment in Ratnagiri and he was free to join politics. And the Congress had actively wooed him to join their party. Including the then president of the Congress, Subhash Chandra Bose, even Nehru and others. They had expected that Savarkar would join the Congress, which was like a foregone conclusion. But he had, quite famously commented that I would rather be in the last line of the patriots than in the first line of the traitors. And he felt that the Congress had gone so far ahead in its policy of Muslim appeasement that it was akin to treachery, and it had sown the seeds of partition of the country. And so he didn't want to be associated with that party. Also, he was all the time an ideological opponent to Mahatma Gandhi. Right from the time they were young men and they had met in London in 1906 till the very end. Whatever Gandhi wrote, Savarkar would counter it in his Shraddhanand and so on. And they had differences of opinion on just about anything under the sun. So this antipathy to Savarkar was always there when he did not join the Congress and he made these statements. Even in 1937-38, when he joined the Hindu Mahasabha, went on his rallies across the country, there were several attempts to kill him. By congressmen who would either hold, black flags waved at him, throw stones. A couple of times he narrowly missed actually getting killed. And then, during post-independence, you had the manner in which he was framed in the Gandhi assassination. And that was something that even Dr. Ambedkar, who was then the law minister, had said that this was a framed up case. And no wonder then that, the courts honorably exonerated Savarkar of that, charge. So the idea was to put this taint on him so that his legacy is besmirched forever. And that hatred, I think, continues to this date. The only small, interval in this hatred, I think, came during Indira Gandhi's regime, where very generously and magnanimously, being the, stateswoman that she was, she, praised Savarkar and eulogized him when he died in 1966, saying, his role in the annals of freedom struggle was very unique, and his name was a very byword for patriotism and courage and so on. So the Congress today has a lot to answer. Why their tallest leader, Srimati Indira Gandhi, nonetheless, actually praise somebody whom they today, call a traitor, a stooge, an apologist, an Islamophobe, a Gandhi murderer. She knew all of that, right? I mean, if she knew all that, why was she patronizing him? It's not just a message. She actually got a stamp issued in his honor. She gave her personal money for a memorial in his honor. She also got a documentary made from the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. So today, I think the antipathy increased during the first NDA regime under Mr. Vajpayee, where for the first time Savarkar was there up close for everyone to see, with his portrait coming in the Central Hall of Parliament. There was a plaque in his honor at the Kala Pani, which when the UPA came to power, the Ram Naik successor Manishankar Iyer got displaced, and he had many disparaging things to say about the man. And since then, the Congress and all the other parties which are opposed to the BJP think that if they need to get or have pot shots at the BJP or at Mr. Modi, the best thing they can do is by, discrediting Savarkar, calling him names, which is very, very unfortunate. You have a slugfest with your political opponent directly. Don't drag characters of the past into this slugfest that you have. So Savarkar was not even a part of the RSS, so to say. So for them to actually invoke his name with the misconceived idea that by doing that they're going to discredit the BJP or Prime Minister Modi, I think that is very, very unfortunate, and it does again no service to the legacy of a freedom fighter.
Like you said, it's actually disservice to our history, because modern day political narratives are actually skewing the whole plot altogether.
True.
Now, so let me ask you, if should Savarkar be seen as a bigot, somebody who was anti-Muslim? Because that's another narrative. Savarkar's brand of Hindutva was anti-Muslim, and that's why you have Muslim groups coming out and saying we don't want Savarkar's poster.
Which is again, I think, Anand, complete ignorance of history and facts. Because, as the president of the Hindu Mahasabha, if you saw if you read his speeches, which are part of this book called Hindu Rashtra Darshan, he had said that, and this also manifested itself in the constitution, that a draft constitution for free Hindustan that the Hindu Mahasabha brought out in 1945, 5 years before the actual Constitution of India was drafted, which has striking resemblances to the final draft of the Constitution, particularly when it comes to minority rights, when it comes to citizenship, and so on. And Savarkar, in his own addresses, in the Hindu Mahasabha, had said time and again that the minorities need not even have a ghost of suspicion in their minds that in the new independent Hindu Rashtra, their legitimate social, cultural, linguistic, political rights would be infringed upon. Everybody is going to be equal in the eyes of the law. the majority, the Hindus, are not going to get any extra concessions because they are more in number. Similarly, the minorities will not get any privileges only because they are less in number. Your faith, your religion is a very private matter which you need to keep inside your house. You should not bring that into the public sphere or into politics. What more is secularism? And then everybody is equal in the eyes of the law. The minority institutions can get benefits from the state, and all of this. This is documented facts. And of course, he had said that, there are, in so far as there would be a section of the Muslim community in India which owes its allegiance to an extra territorial, power, the Ummah, the larger universal brotherhood, as was seen right from the Khilafat times. As long as this section is there within the Muslim community, we are two nations, because their allegiance, their faithfulness is towards some Turkey which caliph is going to sit there, and so on and so forth. So, but once that allegiance, extraterritorial allegiance, is taken away, then there's going to be emotional coming together, and then there's no problem. That was what he held all through, that all these things that is detrimental to the sovereignty and the integrity of united India, that needs to be preserved. In fact, he and the Hindu Mahasabha had opposed the partition of India till the very end, when partition was a no-brainer. In about May, June 1947, the Congress had accepted the partition way before even Jinnah actually made a plea for it in 1942 itself. So I think the facts of history are very sober. And it's in this shrill rhetoric that contemporary politics kind of evokes. Facts get subsumed and narratives start gaining ground, and it's very difficult to fight that disinformation campaign then.
So Vinayak Damodar Savarkar and Tipu Sultan. Now let's get to that. Can there be any comparison?
Not at all. This is like comparing two people in two different eras. Tipu died in 1799. He lived in the 18th century. He was guided by 18th century principles of statehood and of warfare. Savarkar was born in 1883, more than 100 years later. So in such a scenario, how can you compare two people? And he was a king. This man was somebody who fought for the freedom of this country. Tipu is posited as somebody who was the first freedom fighter of India, which again, I think is way off the mark, because at that time there was no idea of fighting for your country or for freedom from the British and so on. He had visceral hatred for the British, no doubt. And that was as opponents, just as he had hatred even for the Nizams, for the Marathas and others who were trying to take over the Mysore state. So this was a different era where they were all jostling for power and each one competing with the other. But Tipu's social report card too is highly marred. The kind of atrocities that he committed, the Aurangzeb of the South, that he's often called as, the mass conversions, the destruction of numerous temples and churches, the persecution of the Syrian Christians in Mangalore, the Catholics, the Mandya Mayangars in Melkote, also the people in Coorg, the Nayars in Malabar. He's a hated object in all these places even to this day. When the previous Congress government of the Congress came up with the Tipu Jayanti, people erupted in protests, not guided only by the RSS or the BJP or VHP, but common people, including the Christian community, came out in protests against this. People in Kerala, many people had reservations about this, because the memory that lasts of Tipu's atrocities is still something that lingers on. One instance is of the Mandya Mayangars, who after so many years, 200 years, even to this day, do not celebrate the festival of Deepavali. Because that was the day when almost 600 of their family, men, women, and children, were hung on trees in Melukote by Tipu Sultan. And so while the rest of the country is celebrating this festival, the Mandya Mayangars are observing that day as a day of Shraddh or mourning. So where is the comparison between these two men? It's a false equivalence. And this whole idea, Anand, that, to ingratiate yourself to a particular community, you need to pick up an icon from that community, even if that person is a bigot. and actually whitewash him or her and make him or her palatable to modern standards. I think that is very unfair. If you really want to win the support of the Muslims of Karnataka, Tipu Sultan need not be your icon. Santa Shishunala Sharifa needs to be your icon, who was a saint who spoke of tolerance. First of all, a Muslim of Karnataka need not have a Muslim icon only. He can have a Hindu, Christian, Jain, Parsi, whatever else. But even if you want someone of the same faith, then I think someone like Shishunal Sharif is a much better option than have a bigot like Tipu Sultan, and then you whitewash him, you try to strip away all his excesses that he has committed, which are documented facts of history, and then posit him against a nationalist icon like Savarkar and make this complete hash of a false equivalence, which is what we are unfortunately seeing today in Karnataka.
True, it's a simple binary that they've tried to create. Savarkar is equal to Hindu, Tipu Sultan equal to Muslim.
Yes.
And it's a very
BJP
unfair
versus Congress.
BJP versus Congress. Like you say, it's very massive, grave injustice to history. Final question: you got a book coming out after Savarkar. It's about the great tribal leaders or faces that you're working on. What's this book, the forthcoming one?
Oh no, it's called the Brave Hearts of Bharat.
Brave Hearts of Bharat.
Yeah. It's not about tribal leaders, but actually, icons from across India, from different time spans and also different geographies of India, who put forth, a sense of resistance against invaders. Right from Lalitaditya Muktapida in Kashmir to Rani Naiki Devi in Gujarat to Rani Abbaka in Karnataka, Martanda Verma in Kerala, Velu Nachiyar in Tamil Nadu, Lachit Borphukan from Assam, Banda Singh Bahadur in Punjab. So 15 such brave hearts, lots of women too whom we have forgotten, unfortunately, Begum Hazrat Mahal, Chand Bibi and others, who put on very strong resistance against any kind of oppression and invasions. So it's their stories. And also to kind of somewhere, balance the historiography of India, which is so very Delhi-centric. Everything in the history of India does not start and end with Delhi. There are vast swathes of the land which don't find a representation, the Northeast and so on, for example, the South of India. And so this book is an attempt to balance that narrative too, by picking up people from all across India, people who don't find, a common appearance in our popular historiography, in history textbooks and so on. And I thought that was most appropriate when we are celebrating the 75th year of independence. It's not just 200 years of independence that we've struggled. We've right from the first invasion of Sindh, there's been resistance right from Raja Dahir and Nagabhatta and Pulakeshin and all of them, Bappa Raval, Rana Kumbha, all of them who in this long and uninterrupted kind of resistance against invaders who came from outside, the Turks, the Mongols, the Arabs and everyone else, the Portuguese, the Dutch, and finally the English East India Company, whom we only concentrate on. We don't look at all the others. So I think it's that attempt to paint a larger portrait of what freedom means and who were the warriors who have been sadly unsung and forgotten.
Brave Hearts of Bharat, and the narrative, the title and the description itself has piqued my interest. I look forward to that book and for another longer conversation on the Brave Hearts when that book is released. But Vikram Sampath, always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very